If Sarah J. Maas is Romantasy, then everything labeled Romantasy is going to read like Sarah J. Maas. The Threads algorithm is probably being very deliberately manipulated and disrupted. The song that's stuck in my head all of the time right now is Wood. Thank you.
This is Jeffe Kennedy, also writing as Jennifer K. Lambert, author of epic fantasy romance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. I had to think about it. It's Tuesday, October 14th, and it's a dark and stormy morning. Why is it always a dark and stormy night and never a dark and stormy morning? Maybe it doesn't have the same ring to it. Anyway, it's a dark and stormy morning here in Santa Fe, which is great. We've been getting a bunch of rain from this series of Pacific storms, remnants of hurricanes. Alaska's western coast got hit by a Category 5 hurricane, and they've got communities underwater. And yet, no one's going to do anything about it because we don't actually have a government anymore. We just have a bunch of grifters. Cheers. I probably shouldn't start out the day on dreary politics. We are very happy for the rain here in Santa Fe. It's a wonderful moisture to have. I'm making decent progress on Magic Reborn. I'm not hitting 3,000 words a day yet, but I am ramping up. And I want to say that so far this week is better than last week, but it's only Tuesday. And I haven't written yet today. So, but it feels like it's better. I got almost 2,400 words yesterday, which I'm happy about. And I'm a third of the way through the book. So I've been reading a book by my favorite, Patricia McKillip, one of my all-time favorites, A Winter Rose. And, you know, she does some dark stuff. She is such an amazingly gorgeous writer. She writes, I'm just, you all know, longtime listeners will know that I'm a huge Patricia McKillip stan. But yeah, just such beautiful prose. But this book is dark, and she gets dark sometimes, doesn't she? You know, her books are never quite romances. They're this blend of fantasy where there's romance in it. And I know that we seem to be forever going in circles debating, you know, like what is fantasy romance and what is romantic elements. But with the whole romantasy boom, that feels like it's changed things, you know, because first of all, romantasy, for those who have been living under a rock, is a blend of fantasy and romance, obviously. But it's also a portmanteau, right? It's romance and fantasy blended together. Portmanteau is like the French word for suitcase, right? So it's when you put two words together. Blood red. Blood red is a good one. But these things become one word over time. They become accepted as it. They are, you know, blood and red became contextually, connotatively understood to be a different word when put together. Blood red is a different word than blood and red. There's an expectation for many readers that Romantasy is going to deliver a particular kind of experience. And that's because they come to it from something like Sarah J. Maas or some of the other big hits, a lot of which are imitating other big hits. And so there's a sameness to them. I should read you this really lovely note I got the other day. It was from Instagram DMs, which I generally remember to check my message requests, just not immediately. So I usually see that stuff. But she says, I just finished Never the Roses and I'm a wreck, a good wreck. The title is so wonderful and it's all so very special. There's a lot of fantasy noise right now, endless samey trash, which I don't think it's trash, but I'm quoting her. But somehow I found your gem of a book amongst it all, and I'm hugging it. She sent me a picture of her hugging the book. My heart is both shattered and full. There's so much to say, but right now I have no words apart from really, truly thank you. The world needs this book. You made a very precious thing. And she added tissues were needed. So the picture of her is hugging the book with the tissue in her hand, which is, I'm telling you, people, those are the best kinds of feedback to get. It made me very happy. When a genre takes off like this, you will get a lot of complaints that there's a sameness to it, right? And that's because there will be a lot of writers that will very deliberately break down beat by beat and uh, imitate the big hits. If Sarah J. Maas's Romantasy, then everything labeled Romantasy is going to read like Sarah J. Maas, which is, welcome to the wonderful world of literature in the first place, because that's not how genre works. But also, it's this huge romantasy trend that's come up and sort of dragged in from the edges. I'm working on a metaphor here. It's a half-formed metaphor, but I'm thinking of, like, hear me out. It's like a comet coming through a solar system, and how, like, they pick up all of these smaller comets along the way, right? Because they're so big and they have this gravitational pull, right? And uh, that's kind of what it feels like happens when you get this very big phenomenon like Sarah J. Maas with a lot of gravitational pull in it, goes rocketing through a genre where there have been existing books and they get pulled into it. Then sometimes readers are disappointed because they think, well, that they were going to get more like the comet, like the big comet, but instead they got this other little one, right? I was gonna start going into Jupiter's moons, and nobody needs that. Anyway, Patricia McKillip, who I grew up reading, I had not read this particular novella, always has a little bit of romance in her stories, but they're not capital R romance, which is the expectation for a lot of romantasy. So I also wanted to talk about Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. I finished reading it. It's delightful and wonderful. And I noticed that it got packaged as Romantasy, I think. Somewhere in here it says, she may have said it in the acknowledgments. This is the absolutely gorgeous Waterstone Special Edition, which Ursula signed to me. Shall I show you? I'll just show you, just for fun. See, she said, for the always awesome Jeffe, because I am always awesome. Ursula Vernon said it. Anyway, I really enjoyed Hemlock and Silver. It's excellent. She's got a little bit, she's been leaning more into the romances in her books lately. But again, it's not a capital R romance in some ways because it just doesn't have that much focus in the story. But there's really, this is like a Snow White retelling, but there's a whole lot of emphasis on the mirrors. And what I really loved about it is the protagonist is someone who actually doesn't really exist in the original fairy tale. She's a woman who is fascinated with poisons and has dedicated her life to finding antidotes to poisons. And she's really a terrific narrator of the story in some ways, because she thinks a lot about what things are venomous and toxic and so forth, and it's delightful. It's also really fun to read this because Ursula could correct me if I am wrong, but I believe this is the first book that she wrote here in New Mexico since moving from North Carolina. And I really loved seeing the New Mexico influence in the book, where she has a lot of the New Mexico plants and the adobe buildings and so forth. It was very cool. Desert stuff. I love it when you can see the environment come into an author's book. I have been reading some interesting articles about how the Threads algorithm is probably being very deliberately manipulated and disrupted at this point in time, because Threads had become kind of a liberal space, and it's being heavily, heavily invaded by bots at this point. And I can't recall if I talked about this on Friday, but I'm going to mention it again, that apparently a 2024 study showed that 51% of the people, of the entities on the internet, are bots at this point. So it's more bots than humans. We recall when now Meta got in trouble for targeting user data on Facebook to manipulate the US election. Zuckerberg had to go testify before Congress. Slap on the wrist, it doesn't matter. They haven't changed. Threads is a Meta property. We were having fun and now we're not having fun. They seem to be really using that algorithm to try to fracture progressive groups, and ahead of the 2026 midterms here in the US. And we would actually like someone running the government who cares about the government by the people for the people, right? Right? This is supposed to be the premise of our country. I think what's really important to remember is that they are deliberately targeting uh, people with massive platforms like Taylor Swift, who is avowedly liberal. So right now they've got two prongs going where they're trying to convince people, the left, that she's a Nazi, and the right that she is a trad wife. What I want to emphasize is I think that we are more powerful than that if we remember our humanness. Don't give this stuff oxygen. I mean, we need to stop quoting, reposting, sharing, even responding to it. And I'm here, I'm responding to it, but I'm going to stop, uh, especially sharing anything stupid. Like, like you don't have to go to very subtle signals to try to guess that someone's a Nazi when we have actual literal people out there doing the Sig Heil at a public, at a government function. We have people with the literal swastika tattooed on their bodies in the government. We have people trying to put out narratives that maybe slavery isn't so bad and could be good for the economy. Uh, we don't have to look for subtle hints. The Nazis are out there. Let's target the real Nazis, right? Yeah, don't respond to stuff that you know is absurd. Respond with joy. And so let's all talk about, yeah, how much we enjoy Taylor Swift's new album. I'm loving seeing all the TikTok dances for Fate of Ophelia. The song that's stuck in my head all of the time right now is Wood. Thank you. Says a lot about me. I also love Honey, and I love Life of a Showgirl. And you know what? It's a massive platform because Swifties are the best people in the entire world. And I'm going to remind everyone, and I will remind you again on Friday, if you are in the US, that Saturday is the No Kings protest. It's going to be a massive protest. Everybody get out in your hometowns. Be smart about it. There's lots of information on how to protest safely and take care of yourself. If you're a marginalized person, don't feel the obligation. Don't put yourself at risk. But if you are like me, full of tasty white privilege, then yeah, let's get out there because this is absurd, and we knew it was going to be bad. I frankly thought it was going to be worse by now than this, but it's bad enough. So let's fix this, okay? Let's get out there. On that note, I'm going to get to work. I hope you all find a way to spread some joy today. You all take care. Bye bye. I need to get my thoughts together. I don't know why I'm feeling scared this morning. I was going to debris. A lot of us are space debris, frankly, especially at this point. Uh, my backlist is space debris. Not really. Upon consideration, I'm thinking that I might be thinking of like a, a Star Trek episode of some sort where they like, or Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm really going off on a tangent. I'm sorry. My brain's all over the place this morning.